Hello and welcome to our fifth class on making your own makeup. This class is going to be where we're going to really start to get into the process and the recipes that you can use to make your own makeup with. We'll also quickly talk about powder and we'll talk a little bit about skin tone as well. A quick overview of the class to see where we are at. So we're almost halfway finished with the class. From this class until our last two classes, we are going to be focused on the actual process of making your own makeup, the recipes and um, how-tos of how that's going to happen. We'll also go over a little bit of the history of each different type of makeup as well. So that's what we have in store. Let's see what our class tasks are for this week. So obviously you need to watch this lecture video. You're going to watch the video on how to make foundation. I have a contour video for you to watch as well. And I have a task to build on last week's task of making your own face chart. I'll tell you a little bit more about it at the end of this lesson. But for now, since we are starting out with foundation and powder and things like contour, I want to talk a little bit about skin tone. I've given you a few little tools here in your notes. You have this little card that you can use to kind of figure out what skin tone matches your complexion. This is helpful when you are making your foundation. If you know what skin tone here matches your complexion, then you can compare it to your product while you're making it instead of having to maybe smear hot product on your skin as it's cooking. You can kind of hold this up to it and get a better idea as well. So that is in your notes. Another thing to talk about when we're talking about skin tone and complexion are undertones. So we say that there are usually three different types of undertones: cool undertones, warm undertones, or neutral undertones. You can determine what your undertones are by looking at the inside of your wrist and look at the veins on the inside of your wrist. If your veins seem to be purple or blue, said that you have cool undertones. If they look either blue or green, you probably have neutral undertones. And if they're kind of green or olive, then you're said to have warm undertones. And this kind of determines what types of reds and other colors go well with your skin. In the case of cool undertones, reds and pinks with blue, of the more blue variety, are going to go better with your skin type. If you have warm undertones, yellows or peaches or golden colors tend to go better with your skin type. If you have neutral skin, you can kind of get away with a balanced mix of the cool and warm, the shades that are able to be worn by both cool and warm undertones. This is just one way that you can figure out undertones. There's also methods using comparing your skin to silver and gold, but this one's relatively simple, straightforward. So if you look at the bottoms of your wrists, you can look at those veins and kind of figure out what your undertones are. So that's going to be important as we talk about things like lipsticks and blushes and things like that to help you kind of get the shades that work best for your skin. So let's go ahead and let's talk about making foundation. This is the foundation recipe that I use. It is absolutely wonderful. It covers the skin really, really well. Um, it works really, really well. It smells really good. It smells like cocoa butter and cocoa powder because they're both of those are in them. So it actually smells really good too. Um, the way that you are going to make it, and the way you're going to make actually a lot of these different recipes, you are going to melt your butters and your oils together to start off with. And then you are going to begin to add in the powders uh, to get the shades that you want. You start with zinc oxide. Zinc oxide tends to be the foundation in your foundation. Um, you can add a little bit of cinnamon. It kind of gives it warms up the tone a little bit of the foundation. And then you add cocoa powder. You could start with half a tablespoon to a tablespoon, and then you can add more as needed until you get the tone that matches your skin. That's why I gave you guys the card at the beginning. This is sometimes helpful in that process if you can compare what you're making to what that skin tone is. So what I want you to do, this is a little bit, I want you to go ahead and watch this video that will show you how to make the foundation. Um, it is in your lesson, and I'm also going to leave you a post with a link to all the videos that we'll be watching in this class so that you'll have all the how-to videos and things like that as well. So the next thing I want to talk about is face powder. Now, this foundation recipe that I gave you, it works really, really well. The only thing that I've noticed is sometimes it's a little bit shiny. So you would want to put a face powder with it to kind of blot out some of that shine. One thing about face powder is sometimes we can over powder our faces, and a good way to kind of set all that and to make things look not so powdery if you happen to go overboard is to spray rose water on your face, rose water in a spray bottle. I do this from time to time and it works really, really well. So our powder recipe is similar to our foundation recipe minus the oils and butters. The base for your powder recipe is going to be arrowroot powder. So arrowroot powder, cinnamon, zinc oxide, vitamin E, and cocoa powder again. But arrowroot powder being substituted for your butters and oils. And you're going to blend the ingredients if you have a coffee grinder, it works well, or if you have a mortar and pestle, that works well too. Again, you're going to add in cocoa powder to achieve the proper tone. You can start with about a quarter teaspoon and add more as needed. If you want, you can also press this powder using isopropyl alcohol. You blend it with isopropyl alcohol, you press it down, and it makes a good press powder too. We will learn more about pressing powders at a later time when we talk about eyeshadows. But you can actually press this recipe. If it has arrowroot powder in it, you can pretty much rest assured that it's a recipe that you can make into a pressed powder or a pressed eyeshadow or a pressed blush as opposed to a loose powder. And I like it more actually as a pressed powder than I do as a loose powder, so something to consider. So that's a little bit about your foundation and your powder. So we're working with the foundation of our face. Another thing I want to talk about is contouring because we see that a lot. And pretty much with what knowledge you have now and the recipes that you have now after what I gave you today, you can do a lot of different things with that. You can obviously make a darker foundation as a contour. You can make things lighter as a highlight. Um, you can add mica to make highlighter, um, give it a little bit of shimmer as well. So based on what you know at this point, you could do all the contouring things in the video that I'm going to have you watch, which is right here. So I want you to watch this video and I want you to think about how you might be able to get a similar look based on what you already know about making your own makeup, how you would make your own makeup to get that look. And I told you a little bit already. So just kind of keep that in your mind. Now I want to talk a little bit, I want to build on last week. We learned how to make face charts, so hopefully you've got a chance to kind of play with that a little bit. So this week, I want you to use those face charts, and I want you to use the information that we learned about color theory to create 3 different looks. We talked about 2 color compositions, so complementary colors. These can be complementary colors, a color across from each other, red and green, or blue and orange, or purple and yellow, or you could do even 2 colors beside each other. So think about that, and then I want you to do a 3 color composition. These are often usually 2 complementary colors, so red and green, and then a color beside one or the other on the color wheel. So red, green, and maybe orange. So think about that as well. So 2 color composition, 3 color composition. And the third face chart that I want you to make is a composition of your choice, whatever you can imagine or whatever you would like to do. So think about creating those 3 looks this week. And then upload your work to the classroom. You don't have to write anything about contouring, but kind of keep that in mind this week. Think about how you might be able to do that. If you have any questions, please do let me know. And if not, I will see you all next time. Have a great time. Bye-bye.